I never thought I'd be writing something like this, but here I am. I'm sitting in a cramped hotel room, miles from home, with my mind racing faster than I can breathe. My stomach's churning, a mix of fury and disbelief. I was deployed overseas when I got the damn texts, one after another, revealing things I'd rather not know. I'd always known she was distant sometimes, but I never imagined she'd cross this line with someone I called my best friend. Her name is Lisa. We married 2 years ago, and I thought we had something solid, built on honesty and trust. She's beautiful, long dark hair, sharp eyes that can cut you in half if she's upset. But even her looks can't hide the lie she's been living. I remember the day I found the messages. I've been trying to get some sleep after a long day, and my phone buzzed with notifications. I didn't think much of it, until I read the first message from Tom, her so-called best friend. It was casual at first. "Can't wait to see you tonight and hope you're ready for me." The tone made my stomach tighten. I scrolled down, heart pounding, and every message after that was worse. Secret meetups, inside jokes I never knew about, plans to see each other while I was out risking my neck thousands of miles away. The worst part, the photos. She sent him a selfie, her lips parted slightly, eyes smoldering, and he replied with a kiss emoji. I don't know how I didn't throw up. I just stared at the screen, feeling the cold sweat break out along my back. My hands trembled and my mind kept spinning. How long has this been going on? Were they planning to tell me? Or had they already crossed the line before I even left? That's when I saw the confirmation I'd been dreading. A picture of her, belly already showing, the words "he's going to be so happy" underneath. I stayed up all night, staring at those messages like they'd burn a hole through my phone. My palms felt slick with sweat, my jaw clenched so tight I thought I'd crack my teeth. Every fiber of my body wanted to scream or break something, but I kept it in. No way I was losing control in this moment. I needed a plan. I needed to think. But all I kept circling back to was the sickening realization that she had lied to me, lied about everything. That's when I first saw the red flags that I'd ignored. Small things at first, her late-night phone calls, her secretive replies, the way she'd get defensive when I asked about her whereabouts. I'd always called her out, but she'd brush it off, say I was paranoid or she was just tired. I told myself I was overthinking it, but I knew something was wrong. Still, I never wanted to believe she'd betray me like this, not after everything we'd gone through. Now, sitting here, I realize how blind I was. The signs were all there. The emotional distance, the excuses she'd throw when I'd ask about her late nights. I just never wanted to see them. I felt a cold knot tighten in my stomach as I looked over the evidence. This wasn't some fling or a careless mistake. It was a full-blown affair, with her pregnant with his child. That's the part that's killing me. The thought that I might come back, only to be a stranger in my own marriage. I remember the moment I decided I couldn't let this slide. I was in the middle of a long shift trying to focus on the mission, but her face kept flashing in my mind, her smirk, that look of utter betrayal. I clenched my fists and a wave of anger surged through me. I wasn't just going to pack my bags and walk away. No, I needed to make her pay for this. I needed a plan, a way to turn the tables. The first step was gathering evidence, more than just the texts. I started recording her calls when I could, saving screenshots and making mental notes of her routines. I wanted to be sure I had enough to destroy her if I decided to confront her. Deep down, I knew I wouldn't do this quietly, not without making her suffer. This betrayal was too deep, too calculated. I wanted her to feel how it was to be blindsided, humiliated, and left with nothing. But I also knew I had to be smart. Revenge isn't about words or yelling. It's about control, about making her realize that she's lost everything she thought was safe. I've spent days scheming, imagining how I'd execute this. I want her to see that I'm serious, that I can hurt her as much as she's hurt me. And that's what's driving me now, this burning need for retribution, for justice, even if it's just in her eyes when she finally sees what I've become. I don't have all the pieces yet, but I have enough to start. Enough to make sure she knows I'm coming for her. The question is, what will her reaction be when she realizes I've uncovered everything? And how far am I willing to go to make her regret her choices? That's the part I haven't figured out yet. But I will, and when I do, I'll be ready. I stayed up that night staring at the ceiling trying to piece together what I was about to do. My mind kept circling around her. How she'd betrayed me with Tom, my so-called best friend. The worst part, the baby. I kept thinking about her belly, the way she'd looked in those photos. She's pregnant with his kid and I wasn't even there to see it happen. That's what cut the deepest, feeling like I'd been replaced, discarded, left to wonder if I ever knew her at all. I moved quietly around the room, careful not to wake anyone. I had to be smart about this. I wasn't just going to storm in and threaten her. No, I needed a plan, one that would hit her where it hurt the most. I started gathering everything I could find. I dug through my emails, my phone, even her social media accounts. I wanted confirmation, proof that she'd been lying to my face this entire time. That's when I found the real clincher. Hidden in her email archives was a receipt from a hotel booking 2 nights ago. I stared at it, feeling my chest tight. She'd been meeting him in secret in a hotel just 20 miles from our house. How long had she been lying? Did she even care that I was deployed, that I was risking my life for her and her best friend? I clenched my fists until my knuckles turned white. This wasn't just some mistake. It was deliberate. I couldn't sleep after that. My mind was racing, planning, plotting. I knew I had to confront her, but I also knew I couldn't do it without more proof. It was a delicate game, and I had to play it right. I started recording her calls. When I could, saving every screenshot, every message. I wanted to cover my bases because I knew she'd lie if I caught her in the act. I needed everything on paper and preferably in her voice. I also remembered her telling me she was tired and stressed all the time, that she was working late at her job, that she was busy with important stuff. Yeah, right. I could see through her lies now. All the time she snapped at me for no reason, her phone always in her hand, the subtle way she'd divert my questions. I'd been blind, caught in the comfort of our routine, and she'd been sneaking around behind my back. That's when I realized I had to get more serious. Revenge isn't just about catching her, it's about making her feel what she's done. I started thinking about how to make her regret everything. I wanted her to understand she was losing control, losing me, and most importantly, losing her dignity. I'd been loyal, honest, and she'd thrown all of that away for some fleeting affair. It was clear to me that I couldn't just leave her once I knew everything. That wouldn't be enough. I'd have to give her a taste of her own medicine. The idea took shape slowly, like a dark shadow filling my mind. I didn't want to destroy her completely or humiliate her in public. No, I wanted her to feel the loss, the betrayal, the emptiness she'd caused. So I started crafting a plan. I knew I couldn't do this alone. I'd need to involve a little bit of manipulation, a dash of deception. I had to make her believe that I was still clueless, until the moment I struck. That's when I'd reveal everything. It's funny how quiet you can be when your mind is racing, plotting your revenge. Every sound around me felt amplified, my heartbeat, the hum of the air conditioner, the distant sounds of traffic outside. I could feel the adrenaline coursing through my veins. I kept thinking about her. Her smile, her touch, the way she'd looked at me like I was the only one. That's what made this so bitter. That's what made me hate her even more, because I'd trusted her. I'd loved her. And she'd thrown that all away for some chance to be with Tom, her supposed best friend. I could still remember the way she'd kissed me goodbye that morning before I left. Little did I know that was the last time I'd see her as my wife. I had to find a way to get more evidence, more leverage. I wasn't just going to confront her blindly. I needed her to admit everything. I wanted her to realize she'd lost control. That's when I remembered the phone I'd secretly kept when I was deployed, hidden in a box in the attic just in case. I'd kept it for emergencies, but now it was perfect. I could use it to record her conversations, maybe even catch her in the act if she slipped up. The next morning I made a decision. When I got back, I'd confront her face to face. No more hiding, no more secrets. I'd lay everything out, proof, evidence, everything that proved she'd lied and cheated. And when she saw I'd been prepared all along, I wanted her to realize she'd lost everything she held dear. I took a deep breath, trying to calm the storm inside me. But I knew deep down that once I made my move, there was no turning back. And I wondered, was I doing this for justice, or was I just fueling a fire that might burn everything down? Either way, I was committed now. The game was on. The more I thought about what I'd uncovered, the clearer my plan became. I knew I couldn't just confront her outright, not yet. If she caught wind that I was onto her, she'd cover her tracks. No, I had to be smarter. The first step was to gather more concrete proof, make sure she couldn't deny a thing. I started setting little traps, hidden recordings, sneaky screenshots, even a backup plan to catch her on her phone. I'd spent the last couple of days obsessively going through everything, her texts, her social media, even her emails. I wanted every detail etched in stone. The hotel receipt sealed it for me. She'd been sneaking around, meeting him in secret. I'd seen enough. She thought she was clever, playing her little hide-and-seek game, but I wasn't going to let her get away with it. The frustration inside me was mounting, and I could feel my jaw tightening every time I remembered her lying. I knew the moment we finally spoke, she'd try to deny everything. That's why I planned to catch her off guard. I set up a voice recorder on my phone, hidden where she'd never suspect. I knew her habits, how she'd get ready for work, how she'd spend her evenings. I watched her, waiting for the right moment. One evening she came home later than usual, smelling like perfume and wine. Her face was flushed. She was trying to act normal, but I saw her eyes darting around, trying to avoid my gaze. I just sat there, calm on the surface but boiling inside. She said, "Hey babe, I'm tired. Long day." I looked at her with a blank stare. "You've been acting weird lately," I said softly, trying to keep my voice steady. "Anything you want to tell me?" She hesitated, then shook her head. "No, just work stuff, nothing important." I crossed my arms. "You've been sneaking around. I found the hotel receipt, Lisa. Who were you with?" Her face drained of color. She froze for a second, then shot me a fake smile. "It was just a friend, nothing more. You're imagining things." That was the moment I knew I had her. I pressed a button on my phone, activating the recorder without her noticing. I kept my face neutral even as my insides roared. I wanted her to know I was prepared, that I'd been watching her all along. Her excuses fell flat. I saw her trying to lie her way out, but I had enough. I told her calmly, "If you've got nothing to hide, then why are you nervous? Just tell me the truth." She looked at me, eyes flickering with panic. "I don't know what you're talking about. I didn't mean for it to happen. It was a mistake." I let her stew for a moment, then said, "That's not a mistake, Lisa. That's betrayal, and it's been going on for months. I want the truth now, or I'm going to find it myself." Her hands trembled, and she finally broke down. She admitted she'd been meeting Tom in secret, that she was pregnant, and that she didn't know what to do. I could feel my stomach turn over, the weight of everything crashing down on me at once. All the lies, the cheating, the baby. It was too much to process in one go. But even then, I knew this wasn't over. Not yet. I had to think about my next move carefully. I'd gathered enough to destroy her if I wanted. The recordings, the proof of the hotel stay, her own confession. Now it was about making her understand that she'd lost control of everything, that she'd made her choice and now she'd have to face the consequences. That night I stayed silent. I didn't yell. I didn't scream. I just looked at her with cold eyes. I felt a strange mix of relief and rage. Relief that I finally had proof, and rage that she'd done this to me, to us. I knew I had to leave her, but I also knew I had to do it right, make it hurt enough that she'd regret ever crossing me. Tomorrow, I thought, I'd confront her again, only this time with a plan. A plan to make her see she'd lost everything she valued. I already knew what I'd do, but I kept it to myself for now. The key was to be patient, to play her like a chess piece until I was ready to strike. One thing was clear. I couldn't trust her anymore. Not even a little, and the worst part, I still wondered if I ever really knew her at all. The next morning I woke up feeling like I'd been running on fumes all night. My mind was sharp, sharp enough to plan the final moves. I knew I couldn't just go in shouting or throwing accusations around. That would give her a chance to lie her way out, to spin some story that I'd fall for. No, I had to be methodical. I had to make her see that I had everything, proof, evidence, leverage, all in my hands. I started by carefully packing a small bag. Not for leaving, but for the confrontation. I wanted her to see I was ready, that I'd planned every step. I slipped the recorder into my pocket, checked that my phone was charged, and made sure I had everything I needed. Then I waited. I knew she'd be home soon. I could see her car pulling into the driveway from the window. My stomach tightened, my palms clammy, but I kept my face unreadable. She came in looking exhausted but trying to act casual. "Hey," she said, forcing a weak smile. "What's going on?" I looked her right in the eyes. "We need to talk, Lisa. I've got everything I need now, the proof, the truth, and I want to hear it from you." Her face flickered with panic for a second, then she tried to compose herself. "You don't have any proof, you're just paranoid." "Oh, I have proof," I said coldly, pulling out my phone and hitting play. The sound of her voice, caught on the hidden recorder, filled the room. She was talking to Tom last night, telling him she loved him, that she couldn't wait to see him again. Her words dripped with betrayal. Her eyes widened and she stammered, "That's not what it sounds like." I kept the recording going, watching her sweat. "You're lying. That's exactly what I needed to hear. You've been cheating on me for months. You're pregnant with his baby, and I found out everything." She collapsed onto the couch, tears streaming down her face. "I didn't mean for it to happen. I was confused. I didn't know what I wanted." I shook my head, disgusted. "You knew exactly what you were doing. That's why I recorded everything. You thought you could hide it, but I didn't fall for your lies. You betrayed me, Lisa, and I never want to see you again." She looked like she was about to break apart, sobbing. "Please, I didn't want this to happen. I love you. I was stupid. I didn't know how to tell you." I took a deep breath, feeling a strange mixture of relief and anger. Love doesn't cheat, doesn't lie, and sure as hell doesn't get pregnant by your so-called best friend. You've made your choice. I've made mine. I reached into my bag and pulled out a set of keys. "Here, your stuff. I want you to leave today. I want you out of my life. Don't come back, don't contact me, and I want you to think about what you've done." She looked at me with pleading eyes. "You're just going to throw everything away?" "Yeah, I am," I shot back. "Because I deserve better than a woman who cheats, lies, and gets knocked up by my so-called best friend. That's not love. That's betrayal, plain and simple." I handed her a folder with all the evidence I'd collected, screenshots, recordings, the hotel receipt. "Take this, look at it. Remember it every time you look at your stupid, pregnant belly, because this is your reality now. You're alone, and I'm done." She reached out, desperate. "Please don't do this. We can fix it, I swear." "No," I interrupted. "There's nothing to fix. You made your choice. I hope the baby's worth it, because I won't be around to see it." I turned and walked out, leaving her crying on the couch. The door clicked shut behind me. I felt a strange calm wash over me, like I'd finally taken control of a situation that had spun out of my hands for too long. I'd done everything I could to protect myself, my dignity, and my future. Driving away, I looked at the horizon, feeling the weight lift off my chest. The anger still simmered beneath the surface, but now I had clarity. I knew what I had to do next. I'd sever every tie, start over. The betrayal cut deep, but I was done playing the fool. And as I stepped into a new chapter, I realized one thing for sure. Sometimes, the only way to truly move on is to cut everything that ties you to the past, no matter how painful. The days that followed were a blur of cold decisions and quiet reflection. I didn't want to dwell on her or what we had, what I thought we had. Honestly, it felt like I'd been punched in the gut and I was still trying to catch my breath. I felt the emptiness echo in my chest every time I thought about her belly, the baby she was carrying, Tom's baby. But at the same time, there was a strange clarity creeping in. I'd chosen to walk away, and I knew deep down that this was the only way forward. I packed up the last of her things that afternoon, gave her a call, left a message, short, cold, to the point. "You're out. Don't come back. Don't try to contact me. It's over." I handed her the evidence in a sealed envelope, making sure she'd see it all, the screenshots, recordings, hotel receipt. I wanted her to remember the moment she realized I knew everything. I wanted her to know she'd lost her last chance. Driving away from her place, I felt the weight of everything lifting, but a new question was forming in my mind. How much of this was just about revenge? Or was it about finally reclaiming some dignity after being so betrayed? I wasn't sure. All I knew was that I wasn't going to let her ruin me. I'd been taken for granted, lied to, and used. But now I was taking control back. Once I was back home, I threw myself into work. I couldn't stand the empty silence in my apartment, so I kept busy. Long hours, busy weekends, anything to keep my mind from wandering. But no matter how much I distracted myself, her face still haunted me. That look of guilt, her tears, those were burned into my mind. I kept replaying every moment, every lie, every betrayal, as if trying to understand how I'd let it get so far. One night, I sat in my living room, staring at the empty bottle of whiskey I'd poured myself. I wasn't much of a drinker, but I needed something to numb the ache. That's when I realized I'd been fooling myself. I'd thought I was doing all this to get her out of my life, to reclaim my dignity. But underneath, I was still hurting, still trying to understand how the woman I loved could have done this to me. I reached for my phone, started typing a message I knew I'd never send, just a confession to myself. I told her I'd been naive, that I'd believed in us and the vows we made. I admitted I'd ignored the warning signs, told myself I was paranoid when she was sneaking around. I laid everything bare, how her betrayal had shattered me, and how I didn't know if I'd ever fully recover. That's when the idea of revenge shifted in my mind. It wasn't just about her anymore. It was about me reclaiming my strength, my dignity. I realized I didn't want to be the guy who gets walked over. I wanted to stand tall, even if it meant hurting a little more, just to remind her and myself that I was still here, still standing. I started making plans, not just to forget her, but to make her regret her choices. I wasn't going to do anything reckless, but I'd make sure she felt the sting of losing everything she thought was safe. I'd already taken her marriage, her trust, her innocence. Now I wanted her to see that I could take away her peace, her pride, everything that mattered. I took a hard look at myself, at my own limits. I knew I had to be careful. Revenge isn't about sinking to someone else's level, it's about making them see the damage they've done. I decided I'd start slowly, remove her from my life completely, block her on every social media, delete her contacts, cut her out of my world. I'd make it so she'd understand she'd made a mistake she couldn't undo. The plan was simple but effective. I'd send her a final message, short, cold, telling her I'd moved on, that she'd lost me forever. No anger, no accusations, just finality. I'd ring her phone one last time, leave her a voicemail that says she's nothing to me anymore. That's how I'd show her I was done playing her game. In these moments I realized something. Her betrayal had broken me, yes, but it also made me see that I'd been giving too much of myself away, that I'd been too trusting, too loyal to a fault. Now I was rebuilding. Not just my relationship with her, but myself. I was going to prove that I could survive, that I could rebuild what she'd tried to destroy. Not with revenge alone, but with a promise to never let myself get blindsided again. And as I prepared to finalize everything, I told myself one last thing. I'd walk away with my head held high. No matter what happens next, I'd know I fought for myself. That's what mattered most now, taking back control, even if it hurts. Because in the end, the only way to truly win is to stand firm and refuse to be broken by someone who never deserved my trust in the first place. The last step was the hardest, letting go completely. I sat at my desk, staring at the final message I was about to send her. It was simple, cold, and decisive. A brief note telling her I was done, that I was moving on, and that she'd lost me forever. No threats, no anger, just a clean break. I knew she'd read it, maybe try to reach out, but I didn't care anymore. This was my closure. I took a deep breath. My fingers hovered over the keyboard for a moment before I finally pressed send. The message disappeared into the digital void. Then, I picked up her set of keys and placed them on the table, along with the evidence I'd collected, proof of her lies, her betrayal, her shame. I grabbed a folder from the shelf she'd left it behind and slipped everything inside. It was the last thing I'd do for her. I walked to the front door, unlocked it, and gently placed the folder on the doormat. A final act, symbolizing that I was closing that chapter of my life. I took a step back, turned around, and walked away. My heart felt heavy, yet strangely lighter at the same time. I'd finally taken control. I'd finally reclaimed my dignity. As I closed the door behind me, I looked at the empty apartment, knowing I wouldn't be returning. No more lies, no more betrayal. Just the cold truth staring back at me. I had been foolish enough to believe in her, but now I was stronger for it. I had confronted the chaos, seen through her deception, and walked away with a clear mind and a battered but unbroken heart. Standing outside, I felt the cool breeze brush my face. For the first time in a long while, I felt like I could breathe. The weight of her betrayal had been heavy, but I'd shifted the burden onto her. That final act, the handing over of her keys, the evidence, the last words, marked the beginning of my new life. One without her, one where I could finally start healing. I looked at the sky, clouded with the leftover storm of my emotions, and made a promise to myself. No matter how much it hurts now, I'd come out of this stronger. I'd rebuild better and wiser. Because I knew one thing for sure. I deserved someone who didn't lie, who didn't betray, and who truly loved me for who I am. Walking away, I felt an unwavering sense of finality. This was my turning point. I closed that door on her and I stepped forward into the unknown. And I realized finally that sometimes the only way to truly move on is to let go of everything that's holding you back, and to trust that in the end you'll find your own way to happiness.